Welcome to our immigration briefing show. Today, we're diving into the intense immigration crackdown in Charlotte, North Carolina, where over 80 people were arrested on the very first day. The operation, part of the Trump administration's efforts to enforce immigration laws, has led to protests and heated debates, especially as raids targeted churches and residential areas. Critics say these tactics threaten community trust and human rights, while local officials urge residents to stay safe and seek help from local police. In Chicago, residents are showing incredible resilience against similar federal immigration operations. Using community patrols, protests, and support networks, they've managed to push back against over 3,200 arrests. This grassroots resistance not only inspires other cities but also highlights the power of community solidarity in the face of aggressive enforcement tactics. Despite the challenges, Chicago's residents remain determined to protect their neighborhoods and rights. Meanwhile, Canada faces a different kind of crisis as the international student boom slows down. After years of growth, new policies caps have reduced international student numbers by 35%, causing financial struggles for colleges and universities across Ontario. This sharp decline has led to layoffs, program cuts, and campus closures, raising concerns about Canada's future competitiveness in global education. Experts warn that unless targeted strategies are adopted, the sector might face long-term decline, impacting research, diversity, and economic growth. Please continue to watch for more details. The U.S. Border Patrol's recent operation in Charlotte, North Carolina, marked a significant escalation in the Trump administration's aggressive immigration enforcement campaign. On the first day alone, officials arrested at least 81 individuals, many with substantial criminal and immigration histories, in a swift 5-hour sweep. The operation, which targeted a city led by Democratic officials who refused to comply with nearly 1,400 detainer requests, sparked widespread protests and outrage from local leaders and immigrant communities. Disturbingly, agents reportedly conducted arrests in sensitive locations such as a church, where they detained a member of the congregation without identification and in front of children, igniting fears of violating religious freedoms and human dignity. These actions exemplify the administration's shift towards more intrusive and controversial enforcement tactics, including entering places of worship, despite legal challenges and public outcry condemning the perceived violation of constitutional rights and the humanitarian principles that underpin community safety. In Charlotte, the crackdown drew intense opposition from faith groups, civil rights activists, and local residents, who accused federal agents of overreach and brutality. Footage circulated showing agents questioning workers hanging Christmas lights in a homeowner's yard, asking about their citizenship status in a manner that raised concerns about racial profiling and intimidation. The protests reflected a broader national resistance to the federal government's intensified deportation efforts, which have been criticized for targeting immigrant families and communities in Democratic-led cities such as Los Angeles, Chicago, and Portland. Faith leaders and civil rights advocates condemned the tactics used, describing them as violations of human rights and constitutional protections, especially when carried out in sensitive locations like churches and community spaces. The operation not only heightened tensions within immigrant communities but also challenged the moral and legal boundaries of federal immigration enforcement. The Associated Press reports that the U.S. Border Patrol has launched a significant crackdown in Charlotte, North Carolina, under the operation dubbed Charlotte's Web, which has resulted in dozens of arrests of individuals labeled as criminal illegal aliens. Gregory Bovino, a Border Patrol commander, boasted on social media about over 80 arrests, including those with alleged criminal records such as drunk driving convictions. The operation has sparked alarm among residents and community leaders, especially as federal agents reportedly targeted churches and apartment complexes, places traditionally seen as safe havens, causing fear and distress among families and worshippers. Past operations led by Bovino in cities like Chicago and Los Angeles have faced lawsuits and accusations of excessive force, including the use of chemical agents and deadly shootings, which inflamed community tensions. Despite the controversy, DHS officials defend the raids as necessary to remove threats and uphold immigration laws, although details remain scarce, and community members worry about the impact on public safety and civil liberties. Meanwhile, the BBC highlights that these aggressive immigration enforcement actions have met with strong local opposition. Charlotte's mayor and city officials criticized the raids, emphasizing that they sow unnecessary fear and disrupt community trust. Witnesses described chaotic scenes, with church members fleeing and crying as agents conducted arrests without clear identification or explanations. The operation, part of Trump's broader effort to intensify immigration enforcement across major U.S. cities, is criticized for targeting sanctuary policies and creating a climate of uncertainty, especially in a diverse city where a significant portion of residents are foreign-born. The DHS claims the operation aims to ensure safety by removing undocumented immigrants who have been released due to sanctuary policies, but critics argue these tactics threaten community cohesion and civil rights. As the crackdown continues in Charlotte and potentially extends to other cities like New Orleans, concerns about excessive force and community safety remain at the forefront of public discourse. According to Yahoo US, the Texas National Guard troops, who were deployed to Illinois in early October to support U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers, are soon expected to be recalled amid ongoing legal disputes. The deployment, authorized by Governor Greg Abbott, faced swift opposition from Illinois state and local authorities, leading to a federal court ruling that prevented the activation of these troops within Illinois but did not mandate their withdrawal. The legal battle escalated to the U.S. Supreme Court, which is currently reviewing the case without a scheduled decision. Meanwhile, anonymous U.S. officials indicated that the troops are preparing to return home, though the Department of Defense stated that the National Guard presence in Chicago, Portland, and Los Angeles will be adjusted in the coming days to maintain a long-term presence for law enforcement support. Illinois officials, including Deputy Chief of Staff Matt Hill, voiced concerns over federal plans to normalize military forces in American cities, emphasizing Illinois' commitment to sovereignty and community safety amidst these developments. The Australian Broadcasting Corporation highlights the precarious position of Susan Ley as she struggles to maintain her leadership amidst the shifting power dynamics within the Liberal Party. Once a moderate voice, Ley now finds herself capitulating to the conservative faction, losing ground on key policies like climate change and immigration, which are critical to her support base. Recent developments reveal a fragile coalition with the Nationals, led by David Littleproud, who has successfully pushed the party to oppose net zero emissions and influence immigration policy, further diminishing the Liberals' independence and urban appeal. Ley's attempts to appease her party's conservatives, including her concessions on energy and climate policies, threaten her reputation as a moderate and modern leader, risking her personal brand and her ability to connect with broader Australian voters. Her leadership is increasingly under threat, with insiders suggesting a possible leadership challenge if her stance on climate and other issues continues to alienate her moderates and urban supporters, leaving her in a tense balancing act where arithmetic and party loyalty threaten to overshadow her authority. The Independent reports that Jeremy Renner has firmly denied allegations made by director Yi Zhou, who previously claimed they reached a peaceful resolution after accusing him of sending unsolicited pornographic images and threatening to call immigration authorities when confronted. Zhou, who collaborated with Renner on a documentary earlier this year, also alleged that Renner initially approached her unexpectedly in June, sent her unwanted images, and later refused to promote their joint projects, while accusing him of threatening her and behaving violently during a meeting at his home. Renner's lawyer, Martin Singer, refuted Zhou's claims, stating no settlement was reached and emphasizing that Renner and Zhou only shared a brief, consensual encounter, dismissing Zhou's subsequent harassment and threatening messages as unsubstantiated. This controversy follows Renner's earlier public struggles, including surviving a serious snowplow accident and facing past accusations from his ex-wife of substance abuse and threats, which he has consistently denied. The Associated Press vividly portrays Chicago's resilient and inventive community response to the federal immigration crackdown, highlighting grassroots efforts led by activists like Baltazar Enriquez, who employs whistles to alert residents to immigration agents' presence, turning everyday sounds into symbols of resistance. These community patrols, school escorts, and vendor buyouts, rooted in Chicago's Midwestern neighborliness and long-standing union organizing, have created a formidable local front that not only defies fear but also inspires other cities across the nation. Despite aggressive tactics from federal agents, including tear gas, rubber bullets, and even a fatal shooting, Chicago residents remain undeterred, using creative tactics such as distributing colorful whistles during Whistlemania events and organizing protests, walkouts, and emergency hotlines to gather intelligence and support detained loved ones. The city's unique blend of community solidarity, quick mobilization, and a deep sense of local identity has transformed its resistance into a model for others, even as activists like Enriquez face personal trauma and threats, underscoring the profound courage and unity fueling this grassroots movement. The Globe and Mail vividly recounts the tumultuous journey of Canada's international student program, highlighting how the rapid surge in foreign enrollment initially bolstered the country's colleges and universities, creating thriving campuses and significant economic benefits. However, the federal government's swift imposition of a study permit cap in 2024, aimed at easing housing pressures, has led to a dramatic decline in international students, with numbers having and resulting in severe repercussions. Ontario's colleges, heavily reliant on international tuition fees, have faced closures, layoffs, up to 8,000 jobs lost, and suspended programs, illustrating a sector in crisis. The story emphasizes the stark contrast between the past enthusiasm for internationalization and the current reality, where the sector struggles with financial instability, job cuts, and the uncertain future of higher education in Canada. The Toronto Star details the economic fallout from Ottawa's policy shifts, emphasizing how the reduction in international student visas has severely impacted Canadian universities and colleges, especially in Ontario and British Columbia. These institutions, which previously depended on higher foreign tuition fees to subsidize domestic students and fund programs, now face a significant revenue shortfall, up to $2.5 billion in Ontario alone. The policy changes have led to thousands of job losses, program suspensions, and financial strain, with some universities reporting a 36% drop in international students over 2 years. The article underscores the government's focus on reducing immigration levels and the potential long-term consequences for Canada's higher education system, research capacity, and workforce development, raising concerns about the sustainability of the sector's growth and its role in the country's economic future. The Independent provides a compelling narrative about the fears and uncertainties faced by naturalized U.S. citizens amid shifting immigration policies under President Trump. Dauda Sese, who escaped civil war and sought refuge in the U.S., recounts how his sense of belonging was rooted in the mutual commitments of citizenship, until recent policies cast doubt on his status. The aggressive push for deportations, questioning of birthright citizenship, and increased denaturalization efforts have created a climate of fear among Americans who once believed their citizenship was a secure guarantee of protection. Stories of detention, travel restrictions, and legal threats reveal a nation grappling with its identity and the meaning of citizenship, with many feeling betrayed and increasingly anxious about their future in a country that once symbolized hope and opportunity. CNN reports that Britain is poised to implement the most profound overhaul of its asylum system in recent history, driven by rising anti-immigrant sentiment and political pressure from right-wing factions. The new policies, influenced by Denmark's stringent approach, will introduce a 20-year waiting period for permanent settlement for illegal arrivals, and refugee status will become temporary, subject to review every 30 months. This reform aims to curb illegal migration by making Britain less attractive to migrants, including cuts to living allowances and ending permanent protections. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood emphasized the need to restore order and control, highlighting the political challenge of balancing compassion with security, especially amid a surge of asylum claims, over 400,000 in 4 years, and public frustrations fueled by populist rhetoric and far-right marches. Critics argue that these measures could foster hostility and prolong uncertainty for vulnerable refugees, contrasting sharply with the country's previous policies, which granted indefinite leave after 5 years. Associated Press describes Chile's upcoming presidential election as a stark contest between extremes, set against a backdrop of rising crime and immigration fears. Voters face a choice between Janet Jara, a communist advocating fiscal restraint, and José Antonio Cast, a far-right figure promising harsh anti-immigration measures such as building a border wall and deporting undocumented migrants. The campaign has become a battleground over security, with all candidates emphasizing tough-on-crime policies amid a surge of Venezuelan migrants linked to increased gang activity, kidnapping, and trafficking. Chile's first mandatory voting election may introduce a new dynamic, as millions of new voters, many immigrants, prepare to cast ballots for the first time, with some hesitant due to the candidates' hardline stances. Economic issues also dominate, with candidates proposing contrasting visions for growth, austerity, and social support, all intertwined with a shared focus on cracking down on illegal immigration and restoring national safety. Yahoo reports that hundreds of National Guard troops dispatched to Portland and Chicago in response to protests over immigration enforcement are now returning to their home states, following legal challenges and federal restrictions. The deployment, justified by the Trump administration as necessary to protect federal assets amid alleged rebellion threats, was met with opposition from local officials and courts, which blocked the troop street deployment. Federal judges in Portland and Chicago had temporarily prevented the Guard from acting on the administration's orders, and the Supreme Court later upheld these rulings, curbing the federal presence. The Department of War indicated plans to reduce the footprint of federal troops in these cities, amid ongoing demonstrations at immigration facilities and accusations that the deployment was an unnecessary escalation. The controversy underscores the political and legal tension surrounding federal intervention in local protests, with critics arguing that the move was an overreach that exacerbated tensions rather than alleviating them. The Sydney Morning Herald reports that the UK government plans to impose a 20-year waiting period for illegal asylum seekers to attain permanent residency, marking the longest in Europe, with refugee status becoming temporary and subject to review every 30 months. This move aims to crack down on illegal migration, which the government claims is tearing the country apart, by making Britain less attractive to illegal migrants and reforming the generous system that previously granted indefinite leave after 5 years. The reforms will incentivize legal entry through work or study routes, allowing some reduction in the waiting period based on contributions, and aim to tighten support for asylum seekers, making assistance discretionary and linked to their ability to support themselves or contribute to society. Critics, including the Refugee Council, argue these measures are harsh and ineffective, potentially pushing vulnerable individuals into destitution. Meanwhile, The Telegraph highlights political debates, with the opposition advocating for leaving the European Convention on Human Rights to expedite deportations, and government officials drawing lessons from Denmark's conditional asylum policies, which emphasize employment, language learning, and clean criminal records. Additionally, new statutory rules will limit judges' ability to block deportations on family or human rights grounds, further streamlining removal processes amid rising deportation numbers, with nearly 50,000 individuals removed since July 2024. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.
Waking up to wonders, checking nature blunders. Got our rockets flying while the oceans are sighing. Lasers in the sky.